All right, so we're being recorded. So thanks for joining in. This week's training topic is going to be the REDCap data entry trigger. So the data entry trigger is an interesting feature because actually it's really meant for developers,
developers.
but um, I'm just going to go ahead and show you real quick on I guess on how to maybe potentially use it. But again, it's really mainly for developers or systems that can utilize REDCap externally. So, and again, this training tutorial will be on YouTube. I'm recording it and then I'll post on YouTube once we completed the training. So let's just go over a little bit of what this REDCap DET is all about. So here's our landing page for today, just in case. All right, so DET is actually a web call, and what it is REDCap. Once a new record has been appended or changed in any of the instruments within REDCap, REDCap will then send a post HTTP post method to a certain URL or some certain web endpoint. Like in this case, maybe localhost, some API, some location, like that. So, okay. So REDCap initiates the call because the changes is happening in REDCap. Like a survey, somebody's taking a survey, someone's updating a record in the database of a certain project. It then internally initiates the call to that web address that we just added. Again, like I said, it's using HTTP post method. Again, any survey or instruments changed, then it will actually just send it to this location here. So one couple ways you can use this is for real-time notifications, like the title we have. Inserting that data that was or that record that was updated to the database, sending some data somewhere else to another system, maybe another school with their API, potentially. I mean, you can do a lot with DT because it's such a versatile type of, I guess, call. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate to you how to use it. And actually, it's just a really simple usage. We're not going to do anything fancy, but I just want to show you technically how it needs to be kind of like processed in a way. All right, so I have Visual Studio opened up here. I have a test project, and it's just going to utilize that trigger that we're talking about here. But this project, basically, you can have any application that takes in a web service call, and what we're doing is we're saying that once the trigger happens, it sends that data, that information to this application here. Let me go ahead and open this REDCap. I'll show you. We need a place to trigger the DET. So let me go ahead and log into this local REDCap instance that I have. It's just a test instance. So before you can even get started here with DET, you have to know where to enable it. So it's click on your project setup and scroll down to additional customizations. Within this screen, you have this option. Interestingly, it's right here, data entry trigger, and you can read a little bit more about it. So all the information I provided to you right here. But the interesting aspects of the DET, the trigger itself, it sends bits of information about the change that happened, like the project ID of the record that was changed, the username, instrument, the record itself, event name, data access group, if it's completed, the URL and the project URL. So you can make use of that information if, let's say, your application or system or website or whatever can utilize this information. Let's just say, for example, you need to log this information once a trigger has happened. So after all that information, knowing what it sends through the post, this is where you tell it to send to a certain location. So if you want to go to Amazon.com to some certain API or something, that they'll send it there. In our case, we're just going to send it to our own little local web server, and in the URL on this endpoint here is where we're taking in some data. So I developed a small simple application that takes in the trigger information. So this is developed prior. Okay. So again, we can test it. I don't think it's going to work because I haven't turned it on yet. So once we turn it on, actually it's okay. So we have to turn it on. We have to kind of like debug our little web application here. Flipping back to Visual Studio, I'm just going to show you my controller here. So basically the localhost /API/trigger, because that's my controller's name. This is not really important for you guys. Really, I mean, this is one way to get the information that I wanted to show you. I just wanted to show you what you could do and maybe get the data via a web application like I have here. But you can get it from you can get the data as far as the trigger from, like I said, a web URL, some web application, anything that can take in a HTTP post request. Okay, so we're going to just, I have a web API here. This function is going to take in that post value from the trigger. I'm just going to go ahead and do a breakpoint right there so we can look at the data that's coming in. Okay, and that's pretty much it. All I'm saying is taking in some information and logging it right here. So let's just go ahead and trigger it and see what happens. Alright, so I'm starting up my web server. There it is. So now it's there. This needs to match up with the let's see here, the trigger here. Alright, so data entry trigger, it has to match up the URL obviously with the trigger where you want to send the data. So okay, now in order to test it, you have to make some changes in your record. So I've created a couple records. I'm just going to use record 1 here, and let's just say we need to make some changes to our first name. Once we make the change and we hit the Save Changes button, it will then send to the web application, which is active right now. It's just there, and we can we're ready to retrieve that trigger. So hit the save. All right. So what happens is that it should send the information here. And it does. So post value comes in, and this is what it sends us. All this information. All right, and this information is in compliance with the requirement that it had shown us prior here. Remember this page here that gave us all the details? So then it's basically sending that post value, those post values to our method here. Okay, and then you can do some really interesting stuff with your project, either getting, holding this data, saving it to a database, or getting the record from REDCap, because you know the record ID number and you know the project ID. Was it? There's project ID 23. You know the URL, so you know all the important information to be able to grab the specific record outside of REDCap. So that would be kind of interesting. So if I'm just creating a dictionary that will hold key values here. So next, and we just put another breakpoint down here. If we look back at the debug window, we can see the output of I guess the post values, key values, as you can see, and I just logged it up here. All right, so then we just move on. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So what I'm just demonstrating to you is that I was able to receive some data because of the trigger. So let's say we change from record 1 to 3, and you know, we change the name of this person here, hit the save button. Then the new post values are here. That's the information of the trigger, not the record itself. So any change in the record, remember, any change in the record or instruments or change from surveys will trigger the information and it's sent to this web address. So same thing. And that's pretty much the technical piece of trigger. So a few things what you can do with this is that you can save this information to a database. You know, once you have this record information, you can make an API call to REDCap itself. You know, REDCap. You can also maybe trigger. You can also email people. Email the list of users that you wanted to email. You can also maybe pull the record that was provided for this project to a database, or send data maybe to another web address, or maybe some system that requires this information. So this is actually a lot in usage. We've done a few projects using DET. It's extremely powerful. I guess comment on YouTube if you need to. Ask questions if you want to on YouTube, or you can just email or post us. Email is going to be at this location here. At bc.edu. Let us know what you think, and tune in to, I guess, to the next week's training topic. I'm not sure what we'll post next week, but we'll have that on the website here. Yeah, the Big Portal website. Okay, information here right on top. You just click on this link here. Once you get to the site, you just click on that link. I'll show you the information here. But yes, that's pretty much it. DET, real-time notifications, if you use it for that purpose, right? So any change in a survey or a database record triggers a call to a web address. And that web address would be a web application, your web API, any service that you have that's reachable via HTTP, because that's what the trigger uses to send data to it. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and look forward to seeing you next week.